Morning, everyone. I must update my LinkedIn photo. That was taken about 9 years ago when we started CleverTouch. So the message from there is if you want to look young and stay fit and active, then don't start your own business. So really my session today is really, it's really giving your perspective back to you in terms of what you're thinking. When we tend to do these events, we tend to sort of pre-survey the delegates attending, just to give you a shared perspective back. And actually, in the end, we had 34 respondents, which provides a high degree of reliability in terms of if we were to repeat the exercise, we'd get similar results as well. So throughout this presentation, we'll give you about 8 or 9 surveys showing your own perceptions and thinking and priorities for the business as well. So it's quite good to see how your peers are thinking as well. And then interwoven in that will be sort of a CleverTouch perspective, specifically around marketing automation, marketing technology, if that's okay. Apologies for the stretched image there as well. So I started actually with the definition of digital transformation, because again, it was one of these fashion items a few years ago. And again, the theme today is really specifically relating around marketing and marketing technology, because this is pretty generic. I normally rely on Wikipedia for definitions, but I thought theirs was a bit lame. This one's certainly helped with word bingo, because it covers everything from processes, capabilities, skill sets, technologies, and also, actually, the bit at the bottom I quite like. It's really around state of mind. Now, when people do talk around transformation, they normally refer to it simplistically as change management. And a lot of you will be used to that golden triangle of people, process, technology. Without throwing a triangle at you, I thought I'd steal one from Process Street, who are actually a workflow software company. And again, they try and articulate it in a similar but slightly different way. So what's change management all about, really? Well, it is adaptation to your environment. And there's probably about 10 or 11 causes and reasons for it. And some of these I'm sure you'll recognise yourself. We tend to think about sort of evolutionary change in business and actually in the environment as actually being quite slow, but it can actually be rather rapid as well. Change management is not new to us. It's been around since the 40s. A chap by the name of Lewin, an American social psychologist in the days of the if you like, the mechanical management theorists, came out with this analogy that, well, first off, he recognized the fact that people don't like change. It takes a fair bit of time. And he used this analogy of ice cubes. So if you want to evolve your ice cube from a cube to a conical or cylindrical shape, you need to unfreeze it and then refreeze it, which is a simple enough analogy for most people to get. More importantly, he talked about the 9 or 10 stages of going through change. And we see this when it comes to marketing automation, marketing technology. First off, it's establish the change required. As a business, we talk a lot about establishing the as-is and later on the to-be, getting that senior stakeholder buy-in as well, and translating it as well. So as marketeers, we often get excited about things like lead scoring, bi-directional syncs to CRM, all that sort of granular stuff. That doesn't really mean too much to your executives. Really, they want to hear about how it's going to make money, save money, or build that wider moat inside the business. And so to do that, you need to create a compelling need and translate this technology back into the business in terms of what it can do for you. So important to take people with you, both your executive sponsorship, but also the teams around you. We're undergoing a digital transformation project at the moment with a global tech firm at the moment. They've got 300 marketeers, and they recognize that they need to skill them up to be relevant for the role in the future. And so that pendulum swing from central to decentralization is moving back the other way, but you still need to empower those in the field to have skills that are relevant for the future as well. That's something I think Nina is going to cover. She's going to talk a lot about the evolution from, if you like, print and traditional marketing to more modern marketing as well. Communicate, so important. Actually, over-communication, again, the best practice transformation projects we're seeing now involve using some of this technology for internal communication, not just to see who's opening stuff and their own sort of digital body language as well. Training and development, a big thing as well. Organizations now realize they need to evolve the skills and capabilities within their marketing organizations and bring these skills in-house. And so we're totally comfortable with that as an organization. We spend a lot of time getting people skilled up and certified on these platforms so they can become self-sufficient, and hoping that the experience is good enough that they come back for more when they move to newer companies or say nice things about us. And then after that, it's really about establishing stability and anchoring in those changes and then moving again. So while this can be a continuous process, and it isn't certainly a one-off purchase, there's certain times where you need to reframe and establish those anchors. Certainly as a marketeer's perspective, I think this is your role in organizations today. Over time, companies and customers go in different directions, and that might be due to new innovations or new competitors or just new market requirements. And so your responsibility, if you like, as a marketeer is to maintain that antennae to the market, maintain that stickiness and relevancy. And again, through technology is a great way to do that. So first question here we asked was, are you embracing change, or are you in a state of denial and there's no change going on within the marketing world at the moment? The image here actually for those entomologists, I think is that the right category amongst you? This is actually the same moth. Pre-industrialization, the white one was the mainstream, and there was only 2% of the black. And then after post-industrialization, all that clean air we're living and breathing, the black one dominates now, about 90 to 10 apparently. So pretty good news. And you'd expect most marketers to be able to embrace change. Most of you think actually that the skill sets you have today, there'll be some change, and some of you will think there'll be more radical change as well. And that's something your peers at other organizations are representing, and again, communicating back to their own organizations. Here's a chart from Microsoft. Their CMO is setting the agenda for their own marketeers to say, look, the old world was traditional print, it was field versus headquarters, it was one-off spray and pray, and it was all about talking at people. The modern digital, by the way, these guys are one of the largest users of Marketo. I think they've got about 60 million users under management. Marketo aren't allowed to talk about that, but we can. And they're really trying to push the boundaries of what is capable and new ways and new models of thinking. Exactly what change management is all about. So it is about scoring and customer journeys and long-term life cycles, and that need to think and react to new entrants into the market is so important for them as an organization. That term, by the way, modern marketing, and you'll see it quite a lot now actually. It was first coined by Eloqua before they were acquired by Oracle, and they talked about the way that marketing is changing its skill set, and it needs to as well. Here's a recent article from Harvard Business Review, and the title there, Trouble with CMOs, Chief Marketing Officers. Many of you will know that out of the sort of the C-level board, the marketing tenure is the shortest out of all executives. And it's for a number of reasons. The first reason is that the role is misunderstood by CEOs. There was a study by the Fournaise Group that actually said 80% of CEOs don't really understand what their marketing function is for, what their purpose is for, or there's definitely a misfit in understanding and knowledge. And as a result, there's a lot of hiring and firing within that role as well. And so actually setting the agenda and establishing the purpose and role of marketing is really important. We translate that again when we're deploying or implementing marketing automation to try and establish the business purpose for doing this. And I think Luke later on is going to cover sort of the 7 or 8 reasons that we think you should be considering it as well. So marketing hasn't really been understood or trusted. And that's evident elsewhere as well. So more recently, e-consultancy have put up their M3, their modern marketing model. And the point here is that what they're articulating here is that, again, marketing has changed, and the training and the competency and skill sets out there today just aren't relevant anymore. And I used to deliver the marketing automation syllabus within eConsultancy's Masters in Digital Marketing. And I think it was in conjunction with Manchester Business School. I think it was the only course in the UK. Part of my hat of the IDM was to promote marketing as a career. And most of the syllabuses today aren't necessarily fit for purpose. And certainly the advice I give to my kids, if they, heaven forbid, want to become marketeers, and hopefully one of them will, is don't do a marketing degree, because I don't think they're relevant today, or as relevant as they should be. And the pace of change inside the university courses just aren't up to speed as well. So, marketing strategy used to be all about positioning, segmentation, and that's still on the wheel here today. Whether this is quite the revolution that eConsultancy talk about, I'm not quite sure, but they make a good point here. Marketing has changed, and your organizations and your thinking and the books that you used to read need to change as well. Certainly one of the models we used to use quite a lot, and interestingly, we sort of put it to the side, but whenever we talk to executives, particularly outside the marketing organization, this resonates and chimes with them very, very clearly. So on the left-hand side, as you're looking at it, is the traditional marketing model. So whereas there'll be three sources of audiences in the top three circles, people that you know about and they don't know about you, that's your marketing database. Those that you don't know about, they don't know about you, well, that's your inbound through social. And then the unknown, you don't know about them, but again, they could be aware of you. And take them through the buying process of various stages. So marketing's role was quite distinct. Isn't that very pale green there? The role of marketing was really about thought leadership, knowledge and awareness, and establishing that positioning. But then as soon as someone had any interaction with you as a marketing organization, that would be flipped over to the sales area, and they would have to run with that process, often for too long in an inefficient process, and you'd have to rely on individual heroics and spreadsheet jockeying to get stuff out the door. And sort of the inspiration for a lot of the thinking came out when this book hit the shelves in about 2003, 2004. It was written by the co-founder of Eloqua, and it was this concept of digital body language, the fact that people's behavior, their footsteps, their thinking, the behaviors on their website give you a good indication of how and what they're looking for. And it was about the fact that organizations buy from companies that take the time to learn and add value rather than just trying to sell to them too early. The model on the right, sort of the newer model, was further established by this book that came out. It's called The Challenger's Sale. And this was written by Google in conjunction with the executive board, a firm of consultancies over here. And they were basically saying that, look, 57% or two-thirds of the buying process happens before you even know about it. And intrinsically, we know that's right from our own high-value purchases, whether we're in business or in consumers. And shortly after these guys came out with the 57%, Gartner and Forrester and all these other people were saying, no, it's 70% and 80%. The metrics don't really matter. The metrics don't matter. I'm sure it's different for different people in different industries at different times, but the model makes sense. And as a result of this, it creates a massive opportunity for marketing to hold on to that dialogue, that level of engagement that much longer, and to actually build a more blended approach. The purchasing process isn't linear. It can be an ad hoc journey involving multiple decision makers, but having the ability to capture all that data and all that insight inside systems is of great value. What is interesting, one of the other outputs or outcomes from this book really was the idea that again, the days of the traditional lots of feet on the street relationship sales people have gone. People want to be, they want to self-serve. They want information at their own convenience, at their own time. And that digital experience now becomes a brand metaphor for that brand competency and trust as well. In the US, again, this model is disrupting businesses massively. Forrester believe something like 5 million traditional sales roles are just going to be eliminated. And that creates further opportunity for the marketeers to drive change and new thinking, because the people in those positions today will want to preserve the status quo. So they won't be quite as objective as you can be as marketeers as well. And what it really is needed is that blended approach. So it's really about driving change. So one of the questions we then asked you was, is your marketing organisation in a healthy state of mind? And what we were looking at here is, are you seen as a change agent or a subservient service provider? And again, good news, you've got the ambition, the appetite to be seen as drivers of change. If you feel you're in the no quarter, then I suggest you probably change your boss or change the organisation you work for. Because we really see, and this might be a simplistic model here, but we see three types of marketeers, if you like. Those that at the lower circle here are those that are reactors, that are tactical, that work in a very sales-led organisation, preserving the status quo. Marketing is put in a cupboard. It's seen as the colouring in department, reacting to the demands of sometimes an over-precious sales function. And that's a real shame. And it's really important you break out of that. It's absolutely fine to be a respected service provider. In B2B marketing especially, marketing is an important service provider for the sales function. Part of your role and remit is to fill that funnel, to provide the lead gen and the insight and the tools for sales enablement. But I don't think it goes enough. And what we sort of encourage, and when we talk to clients, we're really looking for people in that second and that top circle. And just by listening to Nina, the way she talks today, you'll quickly establish she's in that top circle there. Because what you really need, and what we're looking for as well as in clients to partner with, is marketeers to drive change, to drive this new thinking, this marketing transformation we're talking about, and new thinking inside the organizations. And so quite simply, when it comes to the application of that mindset and that capability within organizations, we know that if we engage people in that lower circle, then unless they've got an executive champion inside the business, going back to that Lewin model, those 9 steps, then the chances of that project petering out or not making the impact is quite significant. So we're really looking for people in those middle and upper circles. And think about the personalities involved as well inside the organisation. So the first and foremost, MA and CRM, they sit perfectly well together as they do with the CMS system as well. So it's fundamental. Most marketing directors, CMOs, want to establish what we call that spine, that end-to-end journey through the systems, so they can focus on predictable revenue and the outcome. The technologists, and we see some of these around, these are the people that sometimes need a little bit of help because they tend to over-focus on expanding out the technologies. You do need to expand out the technologies, but you need to establish that spine first. If you suddenly are swimming and surrounded by loads of technologies, the impact of marketing can be lost in that translation. So establish the spine first and then build out, and you absolutely do need to build out. But then also remember that the C-suite doesn't really care too much about lead scoring or the impact of a preference center. It's necessary for business, but what they really want is focus on marketing's contribution to the business. So it's that outcomes as well. So as an audience, where are you? Are you technophobes or technophiles? The good news is actually most of you are embracing technology, which makes you more relevant to the marketplace, frankly. And you see your investment in technology growing significantly. One thing that we're seeing quite a lot of in the space, you might know this website, Martech. It started on the back of a blog by Scott Brinker. And he used to publish all these vendor logos. I think we worked out that in the last 5-6 years, there's an average of 3 new marketing vendors being established every day. And that is because 20 years ago, marketing directors weren't sold to. We had financial packages for finance people, ERP systems for manufacturing, business intelligence for executives. Marketers had nothing. They were sort of swimming around with CRM. And so there's been this frenzy for technology adoption. And it is an evolution. I would obviously question this idea of one day you might evolve from Pardot to HubSpot, but Scott Brinker is an advisor at HubSpot, so not surprising that's on his agenda. But that would certainly, I'd flip that one around completely. But it does make sense. You will, once you establish that spine, you will want to grow more technologies to really establish the business and make more impact as well for all those digital signals. There has become a bit of an arms race around technology, and I'm actually astounded there's a society in the US or a charity called Girls in Tech. If I said that to my daughter, I think I'd probably get a slap because she's a woman. But it's amazing. There is this sort of arms race and this frenzy of organisations in the US at the moment of building out their stacks or at least articulating what they're going to put in place without actually having the structure and thought to establish it coherently. So we're still seeing lots of islands of data all around organisations and the need to clean them up. So do you have to get to that? Absolutely, but it isn't an arms race. You do it in a methodical way. I think Nina's probably going to share and articulate her tech stack with you, but it's probably taken 4, 5, 6 years to get there, I should imagine. And again, going back to change management, it's so easy to overemphasize the technology and underemphasize the skills involved in the organization as well. And this really is about better and smarter marketing. So we spend a lot of time talking about organizational skills development as well. The organizations that fail, particularly in the enterprise, are those that try and skill everyone up to be experts in the platforms. What we're seeing more and more is organizations building really strong hub teams with centers of excellence. They're the champions inside the organizations, and then a tiered structure wider outside the business involving individuals that need to be brought in and understand, but they don't need to be experts in the platform. And that's something that Luke's going to talk about next session in terms of wider organizational development. So are you leaders or laggards in your thinking? Well, you're all mainly leaders, and the fact you're probably here. I mean, marketing automation, even though it's been around since 2003, is still in that early adoption phase. It's around about 15 to 20% penetration in North America and Europe. And it's quite interesting. In technology, Europe typically is 18 months behind the US when it comes to adoption. When it comes to marketing automation, because we've had much more privacy rules over here, and privacy holds a much higher currency. When it comes to advanced frameworks around nurturing and smart preference centers and things like data compliance through not least GDPR coming down now as well, Europe is actually showing leadership. So in the US, there's still very much a culture of just filling the funnel. In Europe, we're much more around nurturing and smarter, always-on frameworks. So mainly leaders, yes. In terms of your industry, most of you think you're either you're a leader or just above average, and we would expect that as well. One thing our industry doesn't do at the moment is benchmark, or at least I don't know anyone that really does benchmark. There was we used to do a bit of work in the watch industry, and in the luxury brands, there used to be this organization called L2, which measured their digital IQ. And they were once an independent think tank, which was great. They had academics there, they had industry speakers. Unfortunately, they were acquired by Gartner. But what they would do is measure some objective benchmarking. And then at the end, you pay your money, and it'd be horrendous to be told you're feeble or even challenged. But so I'm sure they can come up with more subtle terms. But we think the idea is great. And so certainly, I'd love to launch something like that within CleverTouch as well. Do you have a clear view of the key technologies and categories that you need to operate as an organization? Probably the more important ones. So what's quite interesting here is, and this probably is impacted based on your ability to influence as well. So email and marketing automation is very high on your agenda. CRM is second. You probably don't own that. It tends to be owned by sales or sales operations. And ABM is further down. And actually, that's quite encouraging because while ABM has been a hot topic and a bit of a fashion, we are in a fashion industry. Last year it was all about ABM. This year it's all about predictive. When it actually comes to implementing this stuff, ABM fundamentally involves or can involve a new way of working with competing systems. And what's actually interesting is platforms like Marketo see ABM no longer as a category, but just as a feature that will be embedded into their platforms, which mean that it's an easier way of working. So don't necessarily run out there or rush out there to buy ABM systems, another ABM system, when you can do that through your marketing automation. Certainly Fujitsu, for example, are going to take out their ABM technology and standardize ABM through their Marketo platform in the next year. Marketing technology, is it overwhelming or underwhelming? It is a little bit overwhelming. There's so much out there, and I'm sure you get inundated with phone calls as well of what's going on. But the great thing is you're embracing it and you're confident in its application as well. So a few of you think it's overwhelming, but most of you have a really coherent and relevant view of what's going on in your plans as well. Again, you'll see that from Nina. Is Maya in the audience? Yeah, the guys from Forth? I saw 3 or 4. There's a few of the guys from Forth here. Again, young, smart business. They spoke at the last event. They have a very coherent and comfortable view of what their marketing tech stack is looking like now as well. So what about data and GDPR? Well, what's interesting here is that as marketeers, you've all evolved from the, oh shit, we're all going to get fined 4% if we don't, all that sort of that penalty messaging that was going on. And most marketeers have moved beyond that and frankly got tired and sick of that. Most of you are actually embracing it as a necessary and good practice, just as CAN spam was as well. And while the EU regulations are still open to changes and still open to interpretation, most marketeers with MA already have a strategy and are coping pretty well. So one of the biggest areas of one of the biggest sources of revenue for us at the moment is around preference centers. We've probably got about 15, 20 preference centers or smart preference centers going on at any one time. This is the ability to manage individuals, their preferences, their frequency of communication, all to be GDPR compliant as well. So in terms of your priorities for 2018, not surprising, GDPR and data is up there as well. But again, what's quite interesting is it's some of the traditional things as well, like content generation and optimizing the platforms you have as well. So we know a company that can help you there. With regards to data and strategy, most of you are comfortable. So 6 months ago, 9 months ago, we'd asked people this. We used to survey people quite a lot on this, and people were still getting their heads around it. And increasingly, marketers are actually having to own it now. Some organizations are appointing data privacy officers, which they'll have to do anyway. But often it comes on the shoulders of the marketers to own it as well. Plans, priorities for this year, again, what's interesting is actually, even though we're a tech business, and it's actually quite refreshing, that your focus and priorities aren't around technology deployment per se. It's more around the GDPR and data management, which we've covered already. But some of the softer issues like sales and marketing alignment and that core marketing requirement of generating or generating enough leads and opportunities for the sales function to keep them happy and keep them fueled up is pretty important as well. So, and you'll see that in the numbers here. Again, sales and marketing alignment, going back to the change management, it is around the softer, it's the communication and getting people bought in rather than the technology. So marketing, in a way, hasn't changed that much. It's still around those soft skills, which is pretty important as well. A final point in terms of organizational skills and structures and development and some of the outward development of the tech stack. That's something that Luke is going to cover in the next session now as well. So again, thank you very much for filling in the survey results. Hopefully there was 1 or 2 slides in here that you could reuse within your organizations. And certainly, as I say, one of the outcomes from today is that we hope you've got a clear thinking of how you can drive change and new thinking with this technology inside your organization. Thank you all very much. Thank you.